Welcome to day 19 of the 30-day video challenge and the story of me. Today we've got an interesting adventure that I had just yesterday, as a matter of fact. I was the recipient of some road rage, and I've heard the stories and seen the YouTube videos and all that, and it was a little bit different actually being a part of it, as you can well imagine. And I felt it a good example of what we do, why we do it, and why it's important. So what the version or my version of the story, as we'll say, everything comes with a personal bias. So I've done my best to recount this as accurately as possible without adding any real inflammatory language or embellishing on any of the facts, which is somewhat a natural human tendency. I was coming out of a shopping center plaza. So I was driving down the parking lot so you had two rows of parking spots. I was driving down, and this big, one of those double diesel, super big pickup trucks was turning in. So as I'm coming down the lane, they were trying to come in. Well, it's a really big truck, and it takes my opinion, some special skills or understanding on how to drive. So the driver didn't turn or didn't curve far enough in to be able to make the turn. So he stopped, and so as I was driving towards him, 100% in my lane on my side of the street or parking lot, and he had stopped. So I kept going and turned to make a left to leave the shopping center. So one of the many things that martial arts has trained is I'm very aware of my surroundings and what's going on. So as I was making my left, just something out of the corner of my eye didn't seem right. And as I looked, the driver had his window down and his head out and was, just screaming, back at me and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't understand what happened. He was stopped, and I made a left. The fact that you can't drive your truck and make the turn correctly is not my fault. And so I blew it off and went to the end of the shopping center to the red light. About 5 seconds later, rear view mirror. Suddenly I see this big truck come flying out of the parking lot area that we were just in, come flying up behind me, and then up next to me, and slams on the brakes, rolls down his window, and starts screaming at me again. So it's a gentleman, probably in his later 60s, I would guess, just from general appearance. I don't know for sure. And he's pointing at my car and F-bombing and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just ignoring him and letting it go. And, he just wouldn't stop. So I'm waiting for the light to turn green so I can go and get away from the situation. And he just kept going. And unfortunately, it was a fairly long red light. So I finally, acknowledged him. I said, let him know that I see him. And I'm like, have a nice day. Just, okay, you've made your point. We're done here. Wouldn't stop. Just kept going. It almost seemed like he was about to get out of his truck, which we'll get into in a moment. But eventually the light turned green. And so the parking lot, as you're at the light, was a left-hand turn light and a right-hand turn. So boom, you're going to go your ways. So I was in the left hand, made the left hand start turning. He comes flying around. And, suddenly you just see the truck come flying up directly next to me. And then he starts swerving in like he's trying to run me off the road. This was coming northbound on Coolidge, and if you're not familiar with that street, basically everything is curbsides. There's curbs all the way up, so it's not like just a little dirt and you could get off the road. You would bump up onto a curb and into poles and signs and everything else. So the guy was being very dangerous. So I stayed right in the center of my lane. And, he kept swerving, getting closer and closer. And then eventually about a half mile up, peeled off into the left turn lane and left me alone. So it was an experience. Certainly, we'll say that. And so as I'm reflecting back on that, there's yesterday's video or the other, not yesterday, was it the other day, when we talked about every lesson is a potential life lesson. There were quite a few in this one. So first of all, thinking about just how angry people are. It's like, how angry do you have to be? It's like, okay, you rolled down your window and you yelled at me and you swore. All right, whatever. But to actually chase me back to the light, to then scream at me for another minute or two, and then to chase me another half mile up the road and try and swerve and run into me or run me off the road, how angry do you have to be? And so just that fact alone was sad to happen. But then just that testament on either side, both his side and my side, you don't know who you're dealing with, right? He didn't have any idea who I am as a person, or the fact that I've been studying martial arts for 30 years. So when he was about to get out of his truck, part of me said, please, so to be honest. And it was like, I just want to beat the hell out of this guy to teach him a lesson. So that was the primitive brain, kicking in. And then at the same, it's like, okay, but what if he would have had a gun? Well, yeah. What if I would have had a gun? This is how things happen, like the Kansas City parade shootings and the school shootings, and everybody's just so angry. See, even Yuki gets angry about it. So we had that general lesson. And then as I, thought about it some more, it was, well, this is why martial arts is so important. And I think every child should learn it for the self-defense, which leads to confidence. And so as I was thinking about it, I called Christy and we discussed it and talked about some, different scenarios about what could have happened or may have happened. And so that got me to thinking about, what if I didn't have martial arts training? I would have been pretty scared about this guy. He was very irate and, was trying to become violent. And if I wasn't confident in myself being able to take care of myself or my driving ability, things could have really escalated fast. And so being able to identify my adrenaline dump that happened when when the truck came zipping up and he ran up to me, and knowing how to deal with that was definitely one important aspect. But then I just started going to the extreme of it, of what if he would have freaked me out and scared me when he tried to ram me, and I overcompensated and jerked my car to the right to get away from him. I would have nailed the curb, potentially run into a pole, either a telephone pole, a light pole, a street sign or something, and severely hurt myself. And then again, going back to what impact would I be able to have on people if I'm dead, or just even severely injured? On the best possible note, my car is totaled or extremely damaged, all because this guy is so angry. And so going back to why martial arts was important, it wasn't just the ability or the knowing that I could defend myself if this turned physical. It was the fact that I'm confident enough that I'm going to stay in my lane. And if he hits me, this is going to go to a whole new level, but it's 100% his fault. So as I saw him swerving, I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the middle of my lane. But having the confidence and mindset to be able to do that, I attribute to my martial arts training and being in enough situations during martial arts of how to think clearly and not panic in different situations. Final note, talking about this situation, for those of you that don't know, I own a 2022 Model 3 Tesla. And so Teslas they operate off of cameras. There's cameras around the entire car. And there have been multiple incidents where I've read different reports where somebody got into an accident and they were able to pull the camera footage from the car and show that the other person was at fault and ended up winning lawsuits. And so that got me thinking about this. Like, I'm just going to stay in my lane. And if he runs into me and damages my car and I get hurt, there's footage. So my point again is gone are the days where you can just be stupid. When we were kids, you could do some really stupid stuff and there was a good chance that you would not get caught. That doesn't exist these days. Cameras are everywhere. And if you don't think you're being recorded, you're wrong, right? There's doorbell cameras. There's car cameras. The parking lots have security cameras. The stores have cameras at the doors and inside the store. Everywhere there's cameras. And people are getting so comfortable with that they don't think about it. And then things are caught or recorded on camera that there's no real argument about what happened. And so just that word to the wise, be smart. And just because somebody is angry or somebody is stupid, doesn't mean you have to cave in to or digress to their level. And then I guess most important is I was telling my parents this story at dinner last night, and as I reminded them, it's not illegal to think it. So while I was sitting there thinking of all the different ways that I would beat this guy to a pulp, that's okay, because it's just a thought. It's not illegal until you actually take action. So there's lots and lots of good notes from that story, but it's unfortunate that it happened. It's fortunate that it happened to me and not somebody else. Unfortunately, if it happened, it's probably going to happen to somebody else from this guy. And yeah, it's just a weird state of being that we are as human beings. But definitely don't like the way that I see the society headed. So that's part of why I do what I do, to try and counteract that the best way possible by making better human beings and start with them while they're young. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you have a spectacular, wonderful Monday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.